DM banned me from playing as a cleric because I'm not religious in real life. BG3 has piqued my interest in D&D. I've always been a casual fan, but never really had the energy to learn and play. After playing the game, though, I'm convinced. My friend is a seasoned player and has a group of friends that have run a campaign for 6 to 7 years, and invited me to join to try it out as a guest character. I was stoked to play, and rolled up a cleric, my favorite class to play in BG3. I learned the rules as best I could and made a short backstory for my character. With a quirk that she's always saying prayers, thanking her goddess, and has rituals that she follows daily. Cliché cleric stuff, I thought. That was until the DM asked me if I was religious in real life. I said no and thought that it was a weird question to ask. The DM then says that I was appropriating religious culture, and that I couldn't be authentic to my character because I don't believe in any real-life religion. I argued that this is a fantasy role-playing game. I can play whatever I'd like to play within reason. He accused me of being toxic and bans me from playing cleric and makes me roll up a human fighter, far from what I actually wanted to play, all because it was easier for a first-time player. Is this normal behavior from DMs? I wasn't trying to appropriate any specific religion, just what I had seen and absorbed from BG3. I was super stoked to play for the first time, but this left a very sour taste in my mouth. My friend just shrugged it off and said it was the DM's style. Do people take role-playing that seriously? Should I stay away from cleric for that reason? Loud and clear, this was not normal. I won't be returning to the table. I've seen some folks saying that he was justified if I was intentionally being offensive, which was never my goal. Or that there might have been some religious people at the table that would have found it offensive. I genuinely just wanted to play my tab from BG3 in a D&D setting, and I always choose the cleric blah 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 option in conversations in-game, and just wanted to roleplay that in person at a table. Also, I 100% get that playing as a fighter probably would have been easier for me to play for the first. I was told that if I understand BG3 spellcasting, it's fairly similar to how I would play on table. I legitimately have no idea if I was set up for failure from the get-go. What an absolutely terrible DM. He should listen to this next story and learn a little something about becoming open-minded. Listen to how this actually good DM tricked their players into becoming more accepting, and be less phobic. So, it's a bit of a weird story, and I don't want to sound too self-congratulating, but I am sharing it because I did see significant changes in my players. I really love my players. I've been friends with half of them for many years, and some of them I met through the games as my friends brought them in, so we could have a full group of players. Like I said, with 2 of them, I've been friends with them for many, many years, and they have always been there for me. Always got my back and are really great dudes. Same thing for the other people, as I've known them now for more than a year and a half, because that's how long the game has been going on a somewhat consistent schedule. However, my country is very set back in its beliefs, so some of them do tend to show xenophobic characteristics, and one of my players was really religious. It didn't happen often, and it wasn't that big of a deal, but I knew it was a little problem. And the worst thing was I knew they weren't bad people. Those were things they were taught in their houses and by their surroundings as they care for people, help people, and do good things. So in our game, our party a long time ago, near the beginning of the campaign, encountered an NPC wizard that became important to the campaign, as they kept going back to him, and as he was linked with a bad guy they were hunting down, because that bad guy stole his dead brother's identity. Over the course of the campaign, they formed friendships, mentees, and more with that NPC. One of them who multi-classed into a wizard became somewhat of his student. So after many sessions of traveling through the land and going on different adventures, they finally made it to the capital city of the land, where the NPC used to live. I originally planned for him to be a former adventurer that retired and became a teacher and now has a family. I did not think too into it, as it would be months before they would arrive to where he lived. I only thought that maybe he had a wife that was one of his companions when he used to adventure, and kids to give a reason why he can't just go with them. Also because I don't really like DM NPCs. The only thing I did tell them is he was married, but because of a discussion we had a day before the session, I realized some of my players, not all of them, were homophobic for no reason. And yeah, no point me and the other players tried to tell them. They had their own mindset as we could not prove otherwise. So I decided to change the NPC's background a bit. He was still a retired adventurer and still a teacher, but I decided to make him have a husband. As all they knew about his family situation was that he was married. I wouldn't have changed his sexuality all of a sudden, as that's a trope in media I really don't like when it's done. Thus, when they went to his home and learned that the person he was married to was a guy, the phobic players started saying things like, "That makes no sense. He He never acted gay, never hit on any of us or tried to sleep with us, etc., etc. To which I replied, well, he is married, he loves his husband, and none of you are his type, and not all gay people act like the stereotype. They accepted it somewhat, and after the session they asked me why I added a gay character when I'm not gay myself, and what's going to happen to him now. To which I said nothing is going to happen to him. His personality won't suddenly change. He's still the same NPC you players got to know for this year. And I add and play female NPC, and I'm not a girl myself, so that argument is totally invalid. That would be like me asking why are you guys playing a half-elf in Tabaxi when IRL you guys are humans. But yeah, the game continued onwards and the NPC kept being there. And after one session of some of the players acting really different around him, they started acting like themselves again. They didn't care anymore because it was never a vocal point of the story. They realized the NPC was still himself. And many months later, I guess that little talk we had did have an impact on them, as I did notice one of the phobic players being less phobic. Basically, for one of the situations, we were talking about some movies and shows and people acting, and how they are being written, and the guy brought up a point that it put homosexual people in a bad light, about the thing we were talking about, as it stereotyped them, and not all of them are the same. But yeah, there were also many others that I noticed that they were being less and less phobic. But not just for this, but also for other situations, where they started being less prejudiced, etc., and they became more open-minded in general. One of my players said that he even forgot that the NPC was that, and realized it was never a big deal to them. I felt really proud of them, almost like a parent, to hear that one of my players has given up on having a certain viewpoint, and learned something, and I felt proud of myself being able to teach them stuff through a fantasy game, where we use our imagination and roll dice. It really is wholesome that D&D, a fun fantasy game of wizards, warriors, and dice, can change a person's perspective on the real world, and the people coexist alongside us. Kudos to this DM for really helping his players see this differently in a positive way. The argument about playing a woman and not being a woman was absolutely brilliant. Before we take our leave, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, All Things D&D. Stay tuned for more amazing Dungeons & Dragons content every week.